Hey everybody, this is Patty Rice. For those of you who are new to the channel, the Lord spoke to me one day and told me, you're the promise coach. And so he told me that I need to call myself the promise coach every time I come on. And he mandated that my assignment is to come on and to encourage those who are holding on to a promise from the Lord and waiting on the Lord for that promise to manifest. And so that's what I've been doing, is coming on here pretty much once a week and kind of sharing what the Lord is saying to me to really encourage and, hopefully just bring a due season word to those who are looking to the Lord to bring that promise home, to bring it forth. And so God wanted me to come on here today. He wanted me to share something, an experience, an encounter that I had with him. But then also, he wanted me to give a specific word that's kind of tied in with the encounter that I had. And so what God has been saying to me, he's been talking to me about people who are in a mode of asking why. And he's been saying to me that there are many of you who have been, saying things like, why me? Or why, God? Why did this have to happen to me? Why am I in this predicament? Why am, I in this situation, this thing that's going on in my life? Why is it happening? And you may be looking at people to your left and to your right, and they look like they are winning. They look like, everything is going smooth for them. Everything is working out in their favor, and they can do no wrong, and and no wrong can happen to them. But God really wants you to refocus, put your eyes on him and not on other people. And he's going to answer your why question. And the reason that one of the reasons that he gave me this word, one is to encourage you, but to also share with you a little backstory that in my experience of the why question, the why me, why is this happening to me? When I was going through a wilderness season, which really lasted quite a long time. It lasted a really long time, y'all. I was going through that wilderness season, and the entire time, except maybe like the last couple of years of it, I was asking God why. Like something would happen, some negative thing would happen in my life, and I'd be like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? God, I mean, you said you love me, Lord. Why is this happening? Why me, Lord? What is going on? Why are these things occurring in my life? And so it was just interesting how I came to a place toward the very end of that wilderness season. And I realized I just wanted to stop asking him, why, because I wasn't even getting an answer for one thing. And then for another, I just felt like it was just depressing. It's just like, okay, God is not answering it. He's not interested in answering this question. And so I'm just going to power through. I'm just going to trust God, and I'm going to power through. And it's interesting, when I got in that mind space, maybe it was like 2019, when he answered my question about why. And so I want to share that answer with you, because like he was telling me, many of you have been asking that question of him. Why me? Why am I in this situation? Why did this particular thing happen to me? Why did, the person leave me? Why did somebody steal my money? Why was I fired from the job? Why did I have to go through a foreclosure? Why me? Why me? And just even all of the the grief and things that go along with, why did I have to lose this loved one who meant so much to my life? Because I know for me, when both of my parents passed away, I was asking that question, and I would have friends who, their moms are alive, their dads are alive, and I would just be like, Lord, why me? Why do I have to be an orphan? Why me? And so in 2019, God woke me up early one morning. And this actually is not the encounter that I had, but this is the informational piece that he wanted me to share. He woke me up early one morning and he said to me, because I'm raising up an army. And I was just like, it was just like out of left field. Sometimes God will speak, a single word or a phrase, and you're like, God, what? It just comes out of left field. So he said to me, because I'm raising up an army. And I was just like, God, what do you mean? What are you saying? Because I'm raising up an army. And then he began to break down to me and share with me why he had allowed me to go through all of the tough situations and experiences that I had gone through. And it wasn't that he had turned his back on me or had turned his heart away from me or had lifted his hand from me. It was that he loves me as a father, and he wanted me to toughen up. He wanted to toughen me up. He wanted to raise me up as a soldier. And so he began to really speak to me about a couple of things. He began to speak to me about the children of Israel and what they had gone through, and about David and his wilderness season. And so with the children of Israel, he began to talk to me about, the murmuring and complaining that they did because they didn't understand that he was taking people who had had a slave mentality and then making soldiers. And there was a reason for that. And I'll get to that in just a moment. And so God began to break that down to me. And he was like, look at soldiers, look at what happens. When somebody signs up to go into the military, they go immediately into boot camp. And so that when God brought the children of Israel out of Egypt, and he was bringing them into that process of making soldiers, they were basically thrust into a boot camp like situation. And so God began to show me the similarities from the scripture with what the children of Israel went through and the military and what people in the military go through. And we kind of have seen it. I haven't ever been in the military myself, but many members of my family have been in the military, and they've told me stories. But we've also seen some of it in some movies, even though they're, dramatized and things like that. It's still some things from those movies that are markers of what people go through when they go into the military. And I thought it was beautifully captured in the movie An Officer and a Gentleman with Richard Gere many years ago, where he goes in and he's in there with the long hair, and all these people are in there with their long hair, and they have their own habits, their certain way of doing things, and they come in jeans and whatnot. And the military, they had to be built into soldiers. And so the first thing that happens is everything that they're familiar with is completely stripped. And so they, in the movie, went through that process of, all the hair being cut and all of the items of clothing that they had worn. They didn't wear that anymore. They get these private uniforms, and then they have to eat at a certain time in a certain way. Everything is very structured. Everything is laid out for them. There's a hierarchy that they have to listen to. They begin to work out. They begin to, run in the mornings and things like that. They have to make their bed a certain way and do all of those things a certain way. And so God began to show me in my own life and really relate that too with the children of Israel, with how in my life, when he thrust me into the wilderness season, I was stripped of everything I knew. Like I was literally like, okay, where am I? What is this? I don't understand what's going on. Why am I all of a sudden without all of the things that I used to have and used to identify with? Like God stripped everything from me. And it was just one of those experiences where I just had to cling to him. I had to cling on to him like a lifeline because I didn't know what was going on. He never even spoke to me. Hey, you're going into this wilderness and it's going to be like this and this is going to happen and that is going to happen. No, it wasn't like where I would, sign up and know what I was getting myself into. I signed up, Jesus come into my heart, and I did not know what I was getting into. It all of a sudden just started happening. Stuff, friends started falling like dominoes out of my life. Things that I knew and enjoyed and participated with and all of that, everything was being stripped. Everything. And so God, what he does when he takes you in that wilderness season, he's stripping you of everything that you know and you are so that he can make you over again. And we see that he did that with David as well. He basically stripped David of everything, his home, his, living with his family, being a shepherd, all of the things that he knew. And he put him into unfamiliar territory, unfamiliar circumstances, so that he could make him over again, so that he basically could make him a king. And that's what he was trying to do with the children of Israel, where he was stripping them and teaching them how to trust in him, how to rely on him for everything. Because the children of Israel had come up in a place where, under Pharaoh's rule, where they were oppressed and they were dependent on Pharaoh and his people for everything that was provided to them, the food and what have you. And so God put them in unfamiliar circumstances and allowed adversity to come. And that adversity was meant to make and shape them and help them to understand that he's the one that they needed to rely on. He's the one who has the answers, who has, the solutions. He's the one who will bring the miracles and cause things to happen. And so that's what God is doing when he allows any of us go into a wilderness season. We're being tried, we're being tested, we're being proved. And that word adversity, he talked to me about that word adversity because he was showing me, he was like, how is muscle made? And so he started to kind of show me in a vision and speak to me about muscle and how muscle needs tension in order for it to get stronger. And, like when people are flabby and everything like that, and they want to build muscle, there's certain things they have to do. There's a certain way they need to eat, certain things they need to eat, and they need to have that tension, like of the strength training, of the weightlifting, so that they can build that muscle. If that doesn't happen, there will be no muscle build. That's just how it is. And so God was sharing that with me, and he was telling me, his objective in using the wilderness and all of those experiences that we have when we're in a wilderness is to build a stronger believer. And so that's why the wilderness, that's why you've been through what you've been through. Some of you may even still be going through what you're going through. That is why, because God is raising up an army. Now, why is he raising up an army? And this is the piece that I wanted to tell you about, an encounter that I had this week that told me why he's raising up an army. And, we pretty much know by wisdom, but he showed me visually. So I was lying in bed. I was wide awake. I was actually worshiping, kind of singing, worshiping to along with, I should say, a group called Jesus Image that was on YouTube. And so I was just singing along. They were singing the song, Holy are you, Lord God Almighty. So they were singing along, singing that, and I was singing along with it and everything. And I closed my eyes. As soon as I closed my eyes, I found myself on a runway at an airport. And it was like so strange because it was like I was one of the planes. And I couldn't see the Lord, but I felt him next to me. It was almost like if you are in the room with someone you know and love, somebody's close to you, and you close your eyes and you know that person is right there. It was like that. And the next thing I knew, without the Lord saying anything to me, I took off running. It was like he had me running. And I took off running down the runway, and then I lifted off. And he was right with me. And as I lifted off, I get up to the sky, and all of a sudden I see this swarm. It's a black swarm of demons. And the demons are all dressed in black armor. And they are on black horses, and the horses are galloping through the sky. And I'm in the midst of this, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just like, oh my God. And so I like look to where I know Jesus is, where I feel him, like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden, all those demons, it had to be thousands and thousands and thousands of them, all of them began to scream and fall off of their horses, and their horses began to collapse. Every last one of them, as we were flying through them, that happened to them. And as instantly as that happened, I was right back in my body, singing holy, and opened my eyes and was like, oh my God. And God said to me, I'm raising up an army because you have a real enemy. And so I was just like floored. I was just blown away by, him sharing that with me. And he just really just kind of broke down for me how important it is that we get spiritually strong as believers. And he will tell us, what's going to happen at the end of, the testing, at the end of what we go through. Just like with Jesus, he was tested in the wilderness by the enemy. He had to go through that, but he always knew, and he also had to go through, God just spoke to me, he also had to go through the Garden of Gethsemane moment. But he always knew what the end result would be. And so God wants me to tell you and to remind you, God has spoken to you the end result. He's spoken to you your victory. He's spoken to you that you're going to have exactly what he spoke over you. You're going to have exactly what he said, and nothing will hinder that. But what you need to know is that you're going through what you're going through because he's raising up an army, and we have a real enemy. And if the children of Israel had recognized that, if they had just leaned into what God was doing in their lives and embraced it and just believed God, when they walked into that promised land, they would have been strong enough to stand against those enemies But because they couldn't catch what God was doing, and they couldn't embrace what God was doing, they stayed stuck in that why me moment, that why me syndrome. And they never broke out of that mindset to be able to receive what God had for them. They forfeited it. And then the next generation was able to receive it. But see, God always knew, yes, I'm giving you this land of milk and honey, but you're going to have to take the territory. You're going to have to go in, take dominion, and subdue. And so many of you, I just want to, just make you aware that, yes, you're believing God for a big thing. You're believing God for a great thing. It could be something like a promotion. That promotion may cause you to work harder. That promotion may cause you to have more responsibility on your plate. You've got to be strong enough for that. You've got to be in a position where you've already been tried and tested in the fire like silver, like gold, and you can come out on the other side and be like, okay, that happened, because I went through that, I can handle this. So you need to be able to handle what God has in store for you. Be willing to be molded by God and shaped and brought up as a soldier of the Most High God. Be willing to be that person, because when you enter your promised land, it's going to look beautiful. It's going to look absolutely amazing. But don't think you won't have to take dominion and subdue in some areas when you get that promise. Because when you don't do that, when you don't, like I was saying, when you don't have that adversity, when you don't have that tension going on in your life, all kinds of madness can go on. And this is my last point. You see it with David. With David was so awesome in his wilderness season. He got through that. He went through that great. He wound up being made king. It was awesome. But the Bible tells us that at the time that the kings, I'm sorry, somebody's texting me. At the time that the kings go to war, he stayed home that one season. And what happened with David? He was walking by the window and saw a woman. The enemy had set him up with his weakness. Had he been out there at war along with the kings that go to war in that time, David would have been doing the thing that brought that tension, that kept that tension, that kept him strong, that kept him focused, that kept him on purpose. But because he decided to kick back and stay home and not go out with everybody else, he got caught in a trap with Bathsheba. And that meant that, that was a consequence on his house. The sword did not depart from David's house from that moment. So I just want to say, just allow God to let that tension, let that heat hit your life, and lean into Jesus in that moment, in those moments, while you're waiting on your promise. Allow God to teach you the lessons he wants to teach you in this time. Allow him to just really build you up with faith, with courage, with holy boldness. Let him build you up in love. Let him build you up in all of the awesome things that God gives to us by the fruit of the Spirit. Let God do that in your life, because it really is going to help you in the long run. God doesn't let anything happen to you that is without purpose, that is not going to serve you in the end. So just allow God to build you up, raise you up as a soldier, and make you strong enough to stand against the enemy. I love you. I hope to talk to you again soon. And I just wanted to tell you that God keeps his promises. See you again soon.